I kind of was of the position earlier in the season, and obviously it changed a little bit with some of the injuries, but I thought people were writing the Vikings off way too quick as being just like a trash team. Yeah, look, I get it. They won a lot of their games last year that were very, very close victories, and that's tough to maintain that. But to win close games, you got to have close games and be in close games, which would indicate that your team doesn't suck. Granted, yes, they have had some injuries, and that sort of changes the outlook. But at the beginning of the year, as things started rolling here, when I would listen to callers and friends and stuff, just, writing off the Vikings like they were going to lose like 10, 12, 13 games, I thought it was crazy. I stood by. There was a reason why those couple of games against the divisional Vikings were scheduled late in the year. NFL generally figures that stuff out pretty well. They look at all the minutia, all the evidence, and there's usually some science behind that. And I said before, I think those couple of Vikings games at the end of the season might have a little bit more merit than people were giving them. So, again, do I think Josh Dobbs is going to continue what he did over the weekend? No, I don't. I think that was probably a one-off, but the guy doesn't suck. Let's be clear. I still expect the Lions to win the division and win it, reasonably comfortably. But again, I don't think that the Vikings were as bad as people were making them out to be at the beginning of the year.
Well, you might be right. I mean, the way this thing's playing out, if they get Justin Jefferson back, if they still had Kirk Cousins, I think people would be, I think today in Detroit, people might feel, definitely feel worse. That they had Cousins there and all that. It's hard to imagine that there's a degree of sustainability with Josh Dobbs running the show there, if he indeed, keeps the job. What's the word on Hall? Do we know how long he's out for?
Jaron Hall?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Because I think they expect Dobbs to be the starter.
Justin Jefferson's coming back, and when you look at the roster, they have other players that are good too. They have some pretty good defensive players on that team. Again, I still expect the Lions to win the division. I still expect them to win it, reasonably comfortably. But again, beginning of the year, people were just so quick to write off the Vikings as like a non-factor. They were putting them in the same boat as like the Bears and the Packers, and I just didn't see that as being accurate.
Well, the feeling, of course, was that the pendulum would swing back, that the ball bounced their way, that they got a lot of puck luck, and that was going to be, their comeuppance was going to be this year. And it doesn't appear, they're going to suck. But the question, I guess, comes down to, is there any sustainability in terms of what they are what they're getting out of the quarterback position? I would argue no. I feel exactly the same as I did going into the weekend, but better, worse, or the same. In fact, I might even feel a little bit better. Maybe a little bit. You feel a little bit worse. Well, because my eyes are on Philly. And I know they won the game, but they don't look to me like a team that cannot be beaten. The question is, could Detroit go in there and win? I didn't think they could before this weekend. And now I'm wondering if maybe they can. I would suspect they'd be an underdog, and they probably deserve to be an underdog. But do you feel a little bit better about beating Philly now?
I mean, here's the thing. I think every team is beatable. I don't think there's an unbeatable team out there. So Philadelphia is definitely beatable, just like everybody else. What concerns me is not why I said I'm slightly worse, is because of what Minnesota winning that game gives them 5 wins. Well, Lions have 6 wins, right? But the record's much better, 6-2 versus 5-4. We've got the extra game, and it looks better. But what I don't want is any kind of distraction, because the Vikings' schedule cleans up easily for them as well. It's not difficult running down the stretch. So they're going to rack up a bunch of wins potentially. And then you get towards the end of the season, and they play the Lions 2 of the last 3 games. They don't play the Lions until way at the end of the season, and they got 2 of the last 3. I just don't want that to be dicey at all. I don't want those games to mean anything.
That's kind of a big ask. You almost want the division to be clinched with after the week 14 game.
But I kind of feel like we all here in Detroit didn't expect anything to be a challenge to the Lions. You
don't want Minnesota with the ability to control their own destiny going into those 2 games.
That's correct. This is a team that won 13 games last year. You can't discount it. I know people will say, and I've said it, and Kang said it. We've all said it. Yeah, well, they were all 1-score games. Yeah, well, that's what good teams do. They win the 1-score games. They trudge through it. Even though they didn't look very good in their playoff game, it was embarrassing that they lost their playoff game. But it was still a 13-win team last year. They're not a 13-win team this year. But are they a team that can get on a roll here and then create some tumult at the end of the season? We'll see.
what they can do is provide resistance that you didn't want, Gator.
Yes.
You know, I respect the NFL no matter what team. And what I mean by that is any given Sunday is very real. It happens all the time. Big upsets, medium-sized upsets, small upsets. The Vikings started 0-3. So everyone's like, okay, this is where we thought they were going to be because they couldn't possibly win all those one-score games again. Then Kirk Cousins just put this team on his back and was just slinging, probably playing his best football of his career. But then he gets hurt, so we're like, okay, that threat is done with. This next game is an automatic loss, right? They're starting a 25-year-old rookie or whatever, and then he gets hurt, and you bring in the greatest emergency quarterback in the history of the NFL, and I don't say that lightly because I think Joshua Dobbs is the greatest emergency quarterback in the history of the NFL. This guy's done this more than once now. Not knowing his teammates' names, not knowing the playbook. They don't know his cadence, okay? They had to line up on the sidelines and go, dude, you might want to take some snaps so we learn how you call what your cadence is like so we don't false start. And he wins the game. So there's resistance that we didn't think was there. Now, I don't think Dobbs can continue this because that's the reason why he's a backup emergency quarterback. But he's provided something that we didn't expect, right?
I mean, it's crazy. This guy he's like the quarterback booty call.
He's like the dude in the stands. Yeah, you up? Yeah. And then he comes and he always answers. Yeah, I'm up.
Hey, what's up?
And goes and wins.
Or makes it competitive at the least. It's not like a lay down shutout. I mean, this guy, he makes you work for the win.
It started off like a disaster. I mean, getting sacked in the end zone and
because he didn't know anything.
I know. And I'm saying, okay, here we go. This is good.
A quarter and a half later, he still didn't know anything.
Yes.
Right.
And he let him do a win.
I'm sitting watching Red Zone, and they're not giving a whole lot of updates in this game. And then when they are, I'm like watching Atlanta in the Red Zone, and I'm asking myself, where's Bijan Robinson? Which I think is something Atlanta fans been asking for a while now. Like, why aren't they just putting the ball in the end zone? And of course, they had changed their quarterback. They got Heineke going, which is another really good.
But he had a whole week to prepare.
I know. This is what's amazing. This is an amazing story. And then all of a sudden, the second half, Dobbs is like, "All right, I think I figured it out." I'm like, how did you figure it out? It's not like he threw for a ton of yards.
No, but
it was a short passing game. He made plays with his feet, and they kept their composure the rest of the way, and they won the game. So. Look, he's not going to blossom into being the second coming of Lamar Jackson here. He is still Joshua Dobbs.
248-539-9797. Lions fans, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Or do you feel the same after watching games this weekend?